Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel, and here's a headline from the Crypto Basic. Fox journalist calls XRP future uncertain, says his reporting always stands up. And so look, everybody's entitled to their opinion, but Charles Gasparino has been missing some stuff here as it pertains specifically to the SEC v. Ripple case, a potential appeal status, the legal clarity that XRP itself has. And this has been broadly circulated. And since there's been so much confusion on this and so much misreporting, I wanted to take this opportunity to set the record straight. And also, I want to share with you what Attorney John Deaton had to say directly in response to what Charles Gasparino has been putting out here, because he firmly disagrees and actually called out some of the material that Gasparino is putting out as inaccurate, because it literally is. And this isn't an attack on Gasparino himself. I am not interested in getting in the trenches. I know a lot of you have been fighting them on social media. I'm just not interested in doing that, but I am going to challenge ideas where they are wrong, and that's it. That's just how I roll here. But yeah, you guys got to see what Attorney Deaton had to say, because he absolutely just took a sledgehammer to the concept that there's something peculiar, that Judge Torres has done something wrong in the SEC v. Ripple case. And I'm telling you, on top of that, the legal status of XRP is rock solid. So this idea that the SEC would appeal the legal status of XRP itself is absolute nonsense. So when I'd seen Charles Gasparino in recent weeks warn, hey, this ruling from Judge Torres, it's a crap ruling, and XRP is not as safe as what a lot of these exuberant individuals in the crowd are thinking. Like when I see him say stuff like that, I'm like, it's incorrect, and I feel a strong desire to correct the record, because it is incorrect. But and even where he's just sharing opinion rather than stating something as fact, and there's some of that too, I just respectfully disagree. I think he's missing the mark here. But before going further, I do want to be clear: I do not have a legal or financial background of any kind. I am not offering legal or financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. Actually, you know what? Let's use this as a very brief table setter. I'm sure that probably most of you, at least, have been made aware of this news from yesterday. Gigantic news. I argue the biggest news that we've had on the legal front in the SEC v. Ripple case since, or just crypto in general, since the July 13th ruling from Judge Torres that XRP itself is not a security. We had the SEC file a request to appeal Judge Torres' decision. And so that doesn't mean that the appeal was approved. We don't know if it's going to be approved yet. We're not at that stage yet. But they filed a request to appeal. But right here they did something, and I reported at length on this yesterday, so I'll just be brief here. But the SEC has blatantly stated that they're not seeking to appeal the decision that XRP itself is not a security. And here's how they worded it in this red box, which if you're on X, formerly known as Twitter, you probably saw this all over the place yesterday. I made this little red box, and then people they cropped my my little screen. I'm not complaining. They cropped it and used my sloppily. That's why I was laughing, because I just sloppily drew this on like Microsoft Paint. I kid you not. And so anyway, it was just circulated to the tunes of probably over 1 million people, probably bigger than that, because so many. Yeah, there's no way for me to know, but so many large accounts with hundreds of thousands of followers and over 1 million followers were retweeting my stupid looking little screen grab here. So I just got a chuckle out of it anyway. But this is what the SEC actually wrote, and I quote: "The SEC does not seek appellate review of any holding relating to the fact that the underlying assets here are nothing but computer code with no inherent value." So there you go. They're not seeking appellate review, meaning they're not seeking to appeal this particular this whole concept, this ruling, the decision from Torres that XRP itself is not a security. That is literally what that means. This is the SEC saying, yeah, we throw in the towel. It's over. And so anybody saying that XRP is in trouble, how? Even the SEC disagrees with that. Are you kidding me? So take a look at this. This piece from the Crypto Basic reads as follows. Fox correspondent Gasparino drops a hot take on the future of XRP, reporting that Judge Torres' Ripple ruling was a joke and should not be considered a win by Ripple. XRP has continued to be a subject of discussion in the crypto community. In a recent outcome, Charles Gasparino, a Fox Business correspondent, commented on the asset's future. His report talked down Judge Annalisa Torres' ruling on XRP, triggering several comments from community members. Gasparino, who has always been an XRP critic, said Judge Torres' ruling that XRP is not a security was a joke. He further cited that Judge Jed Rakoff confirmed this. Notably, Rakoff is the presiding judge over the Terra case. As reported, the federal judge rejected Judge Torres' logic in the ruling. Okay, so that's why I want to start out the video by sharing with you some of the biggest news from yesterday, which is that XRP itself clearly already declared not to be a security, so that's just the law of the land because Judge Torres is a judge and said so. So there's that. And then there's also the SEC saying, yeah, we're not going to seek to appeal that, which is amazing. And they're not doing it because they know they'd lose that. And in order to appeal the rest of the stuff they want to appeal, which is programmatic sales that only apply to Ripple and other certain transactions, it makes their case more likely if they cede that ground, which they know they wouldn't win anyway. That's why they're doing it. So no, the ruling from Torres stating that XRP is not a security, certainly not a joke. Charles Gasparino is mistaken on that front, I must state. But here's what he wrote here. He's referencing AMC, the movie theater, and FNMA, which is the ticker symbol for Fannie Mae, and he wrote the following. One thing I never do is give financial advice. I merely report. I reported that AMC was wildly overvalued and would tank. It did. I reported Fannie Mae, FNMA, that pump would fail because Trump would not recap and release. Right again. I'm reporting now that the Ripple XRP ruling via Judge Torres was a joke and not the big win many retail investors believe. So I got to pause to say there, how could it not be the big win that retail investors believe when all that we care about is the legal status and clarity of XRP? We don't care. Not that we want bad stuff to happen to Ripple, broadly speaking, but do you really care? If they did something illegal, they did. And if they didn't, then they didn't. It's no skin off my back. I don't care. I just don't want XRP to be illegal because Ripple's doing whatever they're doing or any developer is doing what they're doing with XRP. That's completely unrelated. So how could it not be a big win, especially when even the SEC says, yeah, we're not disputing it. If the SEC thought that Judge Torres was wrong about XRP not being a security, don't you think they'd push back on that? Don't you think they'd have something to say about that? Because they're pushing back on everything else where they lost. Huh? So that's why I'm saying he's clearly wrong, but my gosh. And he says, Judge Rakoff has confirmed that. I have no idea where XRP will end up. I do know, based on my reporting, the court rulings are mixed, so buyer beware. My reporting always stands up. Okay, if that's the case and your reporting's going to stand up here, explain, please, why retail investors should be concerned. Because if even the SEC is not going to fight against this concept of XRP not being a security, who exactly is, and how is anything from a judicial perspective going to change on that front? How's that happening? It's not, folks. It's not. It's just not happening. And here you have Dave Weisberger, a co-CEO of CoinRoutes, and he responded to Charles Gasparino and said, once again, your reporting is wrong. And why is he saying that? Well, because Charles Gasparino shared an article with a false information and a bad headline, an incorrect headline. Here's what Charles Gasparino wrote. There was this FX Street article titled, Breaking, Ripple Price Falls 30% After Court Approves SEC Request for Interlocutory Appeal. Charles Gasparino says, not sure why the XRP army followed the AMC apes in doubting my reporting, but like the apes, no amount of harassment and threats will change the facts. Breaking, Ripple price falls 30% after court approves SEC request for interlocutory appeal. And of course, Ripple and XRP are being conflated there because Ripple's price didn't change. That's a company. What is being referenced was XRP. And it shot up, it just about doubled at that point. And by the way, I still think, I believe firmly that the price of XRP today, obviously lower than what happened after the great news July 13th. It would be even lower today if not for that great news. And how could that not be believed? Like, that's an obvious one, right? Because XRP today is 52 cents. Before the ruling, July 13th, it was 48 cents. So for you to state that, no, the ruling made no difference, you'd have to state that everything else in the market went down, but XRP went up. And there'd be pretty much no other exception, that almost none. You could maybe find one other outlier with like H bar. That's about it. Does anybody actually believe that though? No, I sure as hell don't. So Dave Weisberger says, once again, your reporting is wrong. Judge Torres only allowed the SEC to file to request an interlocutory appeal. That was almost certain, as John Deaton pointed out, as it will give both Ripple and herself the platform to distinguish the facts of this case and rebut Rakoff. To be clear, Charles Gasparino, you were correct short-term on price, but it's also worth pointing out it's in the context of a 10% flash crash of Bitcoin yesterday. The uncertainty of an openly hostile regulator is a key driver of volatility for digital assets. Yep, that's pretty much spot on. It's not worth looking at short-term price action, and nothing happened specifically with XRP to cause any of this, that's for sure. I have seen Charles Gasparino indicate that he believes the Judge Rakoff decision has harmed the price of XRP, and the timing for that just doesn't line up. So I don't believe that for a second. You'd have to believe that there was a particularly large delay, and then markets responded on a completely separate day. I just don't think that makes any sense in the world. It also isn't bad. It's not binding. And then we've only gotten great news since then, including yesterday what happened with the SEC saying, yeah, XRP, yeah, we're not appealing the decision. It's not a security. But Charles Gasparino responded to Dave and said, are you sure there's a material difference? Because again, he was saying, hey, what you're putting out there, this is a false story from FX Street that you're sharing. It's bad information. And Charles Gasparino didn't seem to care much. He said, are you sure there's a material difference? Once again, you seem to be siding with the irrational exuberance crowd, and it's costing you. I just don't understand what this would be costing Dave. That doesn't make sense to me. Is there a material difference, Charles Gasparino asks? Yes. Because what actually happened is a document was filed to Judge Torres requesting a particular action be taken. If such an action were approved and it's being undertaken, that's a big deal. That changes a lot of dynamics of the case. That's a material difference in what is occurring. Because again, what he reported is that the court did approve the SEC's request for interlocutory appeal. That literally is not true. So he did report something that's absolutely false and incorrect here. And then he doesn't seem to think that the difference matters after it was pointed out. It does matter. It is a material difference. Absolutely it is. Now here's what Attorney John Deaton had to say in response to this. So technically he wrote to Dave Weisberger, but you can see if you're looking at the screen, Dave Weisberger wrote to Charles Gasparino, so it's exactly on this. So John Deaton, as a civil adult, is challenging the ideas of Charles Gasparino. It's the same thing that I'm doing here in this video. I don't want any of this to be perceived as a personal attack. I don't want to get in the trenches. I know a lot of people do. I'm not interested, but I am going to challenge ideas. If I see stuff stated that I disagree with, or I can see is just outright, flat out, factually incorrect, yes, I'm going to address it on my channel because that's what my channel is for. So of course I'm going to do that. So here's what Attorney Deaton had to say. 2 weeks ago, I saw this confusion coming and tried to prevent it as much as I could. The FX Street headline in this article is completely misleading and factually incorrect. But there are other web articles that are wrong, and that's why I tweeted out what I did 2 weeks ago. Judge Torres did not grant the request for an interlocutory appeal. What the SEC filed was a pre-motion letter asking her to allow the SEC to write a formal motion asking for her to allow the SEC to then ask the Second Circuit for an early appeal. As I predicted 2 weeks ago, there was a 100% chance Judge Torres would allow the SEC to write a formal motion for an interlocutory appeal. There was no chance she was going to deny the SEC the opportunity to make its case for an early appeal. She allowed me to write a formal motion to intervene, asking for thousands of individual investors to be named actual defendants in the case, something that's never been done before, and then denied it, granting me amicus status instead. So of course, she would grant the SEC's motion to file a motion. What people need to know is that even if she allows the early appeal and grants the SEC's formal motion, the SEC then must ask the Second Circuit to accept an early appeal, and the Second Circuit could say no. As I said 2 weeks ago, she would grant this request and then she would write a ruling denying the formal request, and I guarantee she addresses the Rakoff ruling and says everything that I and others like Dave Weisberger have said. She will point out, Rakoff had to accept all allegations as true, including the claim by the SEC that the promoter Do Kwon engaged in a mass marketing campaign that would have reached secondary market buyers, as opposed to the Ripple case, where it was at the summary judgment stage after all the evidence was presented. And so I'll just pause to make sure that this is perfectly clear. In the separate case, the Terra case with Do Kwon, his lawyer's doing it on behalf of Do Kwon, were pushing to have the whole case dismissed. And so if a judge is going to consider such a thing, procedurally what they must do is assume that all facts presented are actually true, and then come to the conclusion that they still shouldn't proceed with the case. So it's a really high bar. Whereas in the Ripple case, you're not just going to assume that everything at the end of the case, that all of the assertions from the SEC is true. You don't assume it at that point. That's only if you want to try and get the whole case tossed out. So Ripple was at the whole end of this process. And so at that point, it's been fully adjudicated and both sides' perspectives had been considered. Evidence was presented. So very, very different. So the fact that the judge accepted all of that, that's procedurally what you should expect. That's what Attorney Deaton's pointing out there. And then he says, she will point out the Terra case is a fraud case and the Ripple case is not, etc., etc. Remember, Judge Torres said some XRP holders buying on exchanges may have relied on Ripple, but the SEC presented no evidence of it. In fact, the evidence presented in the case showed the opposite. She will deny the request for an appeal. Exactly. So how exactly, as it pertains to programmatic sales, was the judge supposed to find that Ripple did anything wrong when the SEC didn't present any information or any sort of evidence whatsoever that people were buying even on exchanges because of Ripple? They didn't even present that. And then as far as it pertains to programmatic sales, understand this also, and this is why Charles Gasparino is just so incredibly wrong on this. Even if there's an appeal and if it's successful, that doesn't change the legal status of XRP, and it only applies to the transactions that Ripple initiated. That's it. It doesn't impact any sort of, it doesn't impact your transactions or my transactions. I mean, unless you bought directly from Ripple, did you do that? Because I'll tell you what, I sure as hell didn't. So I think we're okay here, but I want to take some time to straighten this out because this is some straight up incorrect information that's been circulated here. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because if anything I say are right, that would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.